Okay, cool. Edward, you've jumped straight in with the screen share, so you might as well just kick us off straight away. Yeah, nice one. You can go ahead. You can kick us off straight away if you want. Yeah, don't jump right in. I think you're on mute actually. Yeah, you're on mute.
Okay, I'm sharing the screen.
Okay, no worries.
Okay, thank you very much. It was 5 months ago that we asked for feedbacks from the community, and it was very great, and it helped us to understand better how to do good UX with our users. I will just try to explain again what is Revolt. Revolt is a project that started maybe one year ago. It's from Kevin Loic and Antoine Poinceau. You can maybe know them by their name, like Darosier and Kevin, just Kevin. Okay. So, what is Revolt? Revolt is a custody solution for enterprise. The problem actually is people are using simple multisig in enterprise. It's not really secure. Generally, people are big exchange are using a cold wallet with 2 or 3 NVM keys. And when they want to have a fund on something like a hot wallet, they are moving maybe millions of dollars to another multisig managed by managers. And this heavy big multisig is quite hot because you maybe have 1 or 2 HSM verifying spending policies on the only 1 or 2 manager exchanging PC BST to send funds to they don't really know. So it's quite difficult to understand how enterprise are managing Bitcoin funds. Generally, they don't want to manage themselves. They will use a big custody institution like Coinbase or I don't know. You have a lot of new custody solution now, but technically, if you are an actor, a small actor, you don't want to manage your funds because you have too much at risk, and you prefer to pay someone like Coinbase to manage your billions. I don't know billions. I say like this. Yeah, so Revolt is here to fix that, to find a new way to handle multisig, and it's not really multisig. It's a vault. So what is a vault? A vault is a coin with spend policies attached to it. It means that it's a coin, you cannot move it where you want. And it's quite new in Bitcoin because it doesn't exist technically in Bitcoin. In Bitcoin, you don't have a moving state. You don't have like you have your coin or you don't have them. Covenants are not here for the moment. You don't have a check template verified is not merged yet in Bitcoin D or something like this. So we don't have covenants. We don't have a way to say to some coins you can only go to this direction and not other to a hacker address or something like this. So what we want at Revolt is to try to create vaults. It means these coins with spending policies. And for this, we have a technical solution, which is maybe a little complex if you see it with a big schema like this. Our solutions is
Can I jump in and ask a quick question? Do you mind if we jump in and ask questions if we have them, or
yes,
would you prefer them at the end? Is okay. So you see the idea of a vault, is it essentially like a dedicated piece of hardware in some respects that has a higher level of like security, like you mentioned, a HSM, a hardware security module, which is by design to more secure, and then I'd imagine on that hardware device is where like your keys would be for signing transactions, and then on that specific hardware device is where you set up what you called spending policies. So that would define where you could actually, like, I guess the addresses you could send to, what signatures are required to send a transaction. Is that the kind of thing we're talking about? But obviously at like a more enterprise level, yeah.
Yeah, we are not really working on the HSM. We are working on a way to create spending policies. People are using the HSM like a way to have a multi-sig secured by automatic signatures that are checking that your PSBT are not are valid. But the problem is your multi-sig is still does not have a lot of requirements. Generally, you maybe have only 2 managers with one HSM checking that they are not doing whatever they want with the PSBT, but it's not enough. And the problem is if your HSM get hacked, if your 2 managers get hacked, your funds are gone. And 2 people to hack on a server to hack is easier than we think.
So if I can clarify my understanding, when you say a vault is a coin with spending policies attached, does that mean that it's essentially a UTXO with, instead of having a really simple, pay to public key hash, it's the locking script for it is a much more complicated spending condition to facilitate all of the different parties involved? Is that correct?
Yes and no. Yes, if we have covenants, a vault will be an UTXO with a script attached that can enforce conditions on how the vault is spent for the next transaction. But it's not the case for the moment in Bitcoin. We don't have covenants. So for the moment, what we do is we have a big multisig with maybe 10 stakeholders having the fund, and they only sign very pre-signed transactions that are not broadcast yet. And yeah, the idea is a Revolt vault is a UTXO where you have something called the unvaulting transaction. It's a transaction pre-signed by the stakeholders that you have to broadcast in order to move the funds. So the idea of Revolt is you have the multisig of the stakeholders with maybe 10 stakeholders, and the team of managers. And the team of stakeholders are pre-signing the transaction, give them to the managers, and when the managers want to spend the fund, they have to move the vault, they have to unlock the funds, and then spend them. But during the time where the pre-signed transactions are broadcast and you have the time lock inside the pre-signed transaction, the stakeholders can have their watchtowers, so maybe dedicated servers with only, I don't know, on island or something else. The watchtowers can enforce the spend policy, saying, "Hey, managers, give me your spend. I want to enforce the spend policies." And if the spend does not correspond to the recipients, I don't know, maybe the funds are not moving to Kraken, the watchtowers can then broadcast what we call a cancel transaction, moving back the funds in. So no, it's not like the vault for the moment in Bitcoin cannot have a script locking the funds according to the next transactions. We can only have scripts with a lock time, and then a second transaction is spending the unvault transaction. You have here the status with the different type of transaction.
So Edward, could you go back a little bit and just because I think
Yes.
it's important just to walk through like this frame 3. Could you walk us through a little bit slower on that, because there's a few things moving bits and there's a few things that people might not be aware of, like watchtowers and stuff. So could we walk through this a little bit again?
Okay.
So just from the stakeholders would be good, just to
yeah. The idea is, if you are a stakeholder of a company, what only you only want to have the funds secured, and you want to have something enforcing that when the funds are moving, they are moving in the good way. So it's quite a burden to check every PSBT you have when people are asking for more funds on the hot wallet or something like this. It's not very convenient. So what the stakeholders is doing is every once in a week or once in a month, he sign the pre-signed transactions of the funds in the big stakeholders multisig. So he signs the cancel transaction, the emergency transaction, and the unvault emergency transaction. So it's an emergency transaction that they can broadcast at any time to get back the funds. And when they consider that managers can have some funds, they give to them what we call the unvault transaction. And they give them to the manager. The manager don't have to broadcast it when he has it, because if he broadcasts the unvault transaction, the watchtowers will say, "Hey, the funds are moving. We don't know yet where, so we are canceling the transaction, and the transaction can back to the stakeholders multisig." The stakeholders give the unvault transaction to the managers. When the managers want to move funds, I don't know, to Kraken or something else, they forge a spend transaction. The spend transaction, they share it with every watchtowers. The watchtowers can check that the spend transaction is okay. And then, when the watchtowers are okay with it, the managers can broadcast an unvault transaction. The unvault transaction moves the funds out of the stakeholders multisig to the manager multisig, and the manager multisig can then broadcast spend. And you can say, okay, what if the manager is not a good guy? What if he create a spend, give it to the watchtowers? The watchtowers say, okay, you can have the funds from the stakeholders to do whatever you want. But when the unvault transaction is has a time lockdown, managers can broadcast a fake, another spend that is not the spend that the watchtowers had in the first place. So in order to stop this, we have what we call cosigners, which are anti-replay oracles that only sign once a spend transaction. So the manager cannot have two spend for the same vault that is unvaulting.
And who are the watchtowers made up of? Would that be watchtowers set up by the parties involved in the transaction? Like, it could be different exchanges that have set up their own watchtowers. It could be a combination of one exchange with I don't actually, that probably won't make sense, but yeah, would it be those who are involved in the transaction having like an independent watchtower to verify like nothing
Yeah.
out of
idea
hand is
is, if we want every stakeholders, for the moment we expect that every stakeholders will have their own watchtower, because they are not really trusting each other to not steal the billions of funds. So they just, all of them have a watchtowers maybe at home, or they have some replicated watchtowers from other enterprise, or maybe you have an assurance enterprise who has watchtowers watching the funds. Yeah, everybody can have every stakeholders can have a watchtowers. The requirement they have is the watchtowers need to have the cancel transaction broadcast if they see that a spend is broadcast. The idea is you cannot move the funds out of the vault if the watchtowers do not agree with the spend policies. If the spend policies are not good for the spend the managers created.
I think that makes sense.
So the idea is, for example, you have a manager who want to send funds to a DLC contract. He want to move from the stakeholder's wallet 1 million. He will unvault the transaction. He will create a transaction to the DLC contract, share it to the stakeholders' watchtowers, saying, "Hey, look, I will send 1 million to the DLC contract. Here is the contract and the transaction I want to send." And then he will take from the stakeholders multisig some funds with the unvault transaction. The unvault transaction will move the funds, and when the time lock, if the watchtower says, "Hey, the funds are moving on the DLC contract seems not good," they will cancel it, moving that. Or if the watchtower has nothing to say about the spend, that the spend is valid, the funds are going to the DLC contract. That's just one of the example. And the idea is for stakeholders, it's quite easier to use. They only have to sign pre-signed transaction each the first day of the week. They only have to share the cancel transaction with the watchtowers and set up the spend policies, and they can sleep well, saying that if managers are moving my funds, I know that the watchtowers can intervene.
Okay, let's pause here for a second. And where are we at, people? Do we feel like we've got a decent understanding of what's going on here? Any questions? Any thoughts? Just here. If not, we can continue. All right, cool. Let's keep going.
Okay, but maybe it will be clearer when with the screen. Yeah. So we have. So the stakeholder, what the stakeholder want, I said, is the stakeholder just want to be sure that what he's signing is a pre-signed transaction, and the pre-signed transaction in a Revolt setup are all the same. They have the same format, so it's easier for him to check. I mean, if you are a stakeholder and you are a simple multisig and you have to move, I don't know, $1 billion in one PSBT, my God, it will be very, very stressful to check if every recipients are the good recipients, and if you don't have a mistake in the address. But it's not the case for a Revolt setup. In a Revolt setup, because all the pre-signed transactions have all the same format, the stakeholders can easily check that is signing a good pre-signed transaction. So Revolt is already a win for stakeholders instead of a simple multisig where it is very stressful. Yeah, so the stakeholder has what we call the home panel, where we can see the funds that are secured in vaults and the funds that is delegated to the managers. You can see a little line with funds like the plus 1 volts. It means that there is a vault that the stakeholder signs the pre-signed transaction, but it's still waiting for the other signatures of the other stakeholders. Yeah, one thing that is interesting is because we made every stakeholder's pre-signed transactions, we have what we call an emergency transaction. It's very interesting because we don't have this in a simple multi-sig setup. Imagine that something very bad happened to the enterprise or to the group, and you want to fund the funds moving to a secure location, like a bigger multi-sig or a multi-sig with I don't know, maybe notaries or lawyers or something like this. Once we set up Revolt on the emergency is agreed on everyone, and everyone pre-sign the transactions to the emergency address. You can press on the emergency button right here, and send all your funds to the emergency deep vault. That's all we call the emergency address. So if something is very strange that your servers, you have an attack or someone get kidnapped and you don't want the funds moving at all, you want all the funds moving to an even bigger multisig, you can press the emergency button. So how a stakeholder is pre-signing transaction, he receives a deposit. And from the deposit, he will create what we call the vault. So in order to create a vault, you need to sign 3 transactions: the cancel transaction, the emergency transaction, and the unvault emergency transaction, which is another emergency. In terms of UX UI, what we did was not very good because I made the mistake that when you receive some funds, you have for each UTXO to pre-sign the transactions. But we expect that with hardware manufacturers, maybe we can have some Revolt application on the hardware that can sign multiple pre-signed transactions at once. So what the user will do is only just say, hey, I want to secure all my funds. You press OK, the hardware wallet with the descriptors, the miniscript descriptors in it. We say, okay, you want to have all the pre-signed transactions derived from the miniscript descriptors on sign for the user. And he will do it. Like the hardware wallet can do it in one press button. So it would be nice to have that instead of pre-signing every transaction for each UTXO one by one.
Okay, one sec. I wanted to ask something. So, this is on. I'm just looking at the stakeholder create vault. So you said that there are 3 types of transactions that are required to create a vault.
Yes.
One is a cancel transaction, an emergency transaction, and an unvault emergency transaction. Like I'm looking, the list immediately like kind of made me feel that there would be some kind of like wizard that would walk you through the creation of each transaction. But I don't see anything around. I don't see like I'm trying to think about in steps within steps. So if you've got the cancel transaction, is that that could be like a whole wizard in and of itself, and then the emergency transaction, but there's not really any mention of like the 3 different transactions that are required here. I don't know if people have other thoughts about that. If it could be like, since there are like these 3 distinct transactions that need to be created, would it be important to kind of like make that?
It was the case. It was the case 5 months ago. It was the case in the GUI. I showed the 3 transactions to the user, and the user just click on the transaction and sign it. But we said that it's not very good in terms of UX UI wise, because what the user only wants is say, okay, create the vault. I don't care what he will have an application on the hardware wallet saying, hey, do you want to create the vault for this derivation index? So he say, okay, and it's signed, and he will not have to think about yes. That's the problem we have is because of the pre-signed transactions. It's like you with Lightning, you have all this HTLC and all this revocation transaction on the penalty transaction. All these little transactions in Lightning UX UI, you don't show them to the user, and we don't want to show. Yes, we want it to be simple, that they only have to see a button saying, "Hey, create Vault" from the UTXO, and they say, "Yes, I want to create a Vault from this UTXO," and they say, "Okay." They will check on the hardware wallet. The hardware wallet, they say, "Hey, do you want to create a Vault for this UTXO?" They they press yes, and that's it. They don't have to think about cancel transaction, unvote transaction, everything, because of this is pre-signed transactions. These are transactions that are very not common in the Bitcoin world, because this is transactions that have not the fee rate, for example, made at the time where they will be consumed. So you have a lot of drawbacks that will come. So we want the user to have a simple UX and just say, okay, I just want to create a vault. I don't care about the details now. And during these 4 images, we can see that I create a vault from one UTXO, and what we want to do next step is just the stakeholders say, hey, what are the UTXO I need to secure? I want to secure all of them. And by secure, I mean create a vault for each UTXO. And you will just press create vaults from all the UTXOs. And in one step, it will be done. It will be easier for the stakeholder.
Okay, so by the end of, so in this case, you only need one signature for all 3 types of transactions, or it's the same signature? Yeah.
Well, the signatures are not the hardware wallet will create the 3 signatures for the free PSBT. And then the 3 signatures are shared with other stakeholders, and other stakeholders share the signatures. And when the stakeholders has all the signatures for the free revocation transaction, then the vault is considered as completed, as created.
Okay. Anyone have any other thoughts on this little flow here?
It makes conceptual sense to me. I think everything that Edward is saying about not wanting to show the users all 3 of the transactions, it does remind me a lot of Lightning. We don't want the user to think about the punishment transaction and advancing the HTLCs of the commitment transactions. They shouldn't have to worry about that.
Like when you're opening a channel, you mean, like, yeah.
Yeah, and and just all the stuff that happens, the revocation secret. We don't want them to know about that or have to worry about that. I think I was a little confused at what was going on some of these frames, and I know that I'm looking at Bitcoin addresses here, and I'm assuming
are they actually? Because
no,
they start with BCR and
oh,
you're right, it's not
8. So I don't think they are actually Bitcoin addresses.
Yes, it's reg test. Yeah.
Okay, so instead of saying BC1, it says BCRT1. I see.
Oh wait, so what are the 8th thing addresses? Is that what is that? Is that reg test as well?
No, it's a TXID. Maybe we should.
Is that just? Okay.
Because
I see. So essentially, the vault was created in transaction A8, D9, etc., etc.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, we designed the vault ID is a out point with you have the TXID on the vault.
Okay, I think I think I see it a little more now. So like the top one there, the BCRT1, and the very first slide has a little shield next to it with an exclamation point, and it's like, hey, this money is not safe. So we're trying to let you know it's not safe. User goes through, this transaction is created, which vaults it, and then we now have a shield without an exclamation point or we have an empty shield, and then at the end here, it's been signed. Okay, I think I see it. I think I see what's happening here. So it has changed from the first slide to here. It started as unvaulted, and now it's vaulted. And I suppose that the user might have multiple UTXOs. So instead of just this one address, it could be 5 of them, and then they might need to go and vault those. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. But yes, what we want is to remove this process and just create some vaults from the UTXOs, and it's just create yes.
Okay, I see. Thanks for helping me understand. Yeah, I mean, my my just initial take of it, and this is a problem. This isn't an issue that's unique to Revolt. This is an issue just across many Bitcoin products. Is just the fact that the addresses and the TX IDs and all that are just so complicated looking for most users to understand, and it's a problem many wallets struggle with. Just how do you represent a unique address or a unique transaction without needing to show the whole address and all of those things. So I'd say just glancing at it, it looks very intimidating. I understand it now that I've looked at it more carefully and discussed it with you, but I think it comes across a little more intimidating. And one consideration might be if you want to try and abstract some of this detail, does the address need to be visible from the start? Could it just be like if you want to see what the address is, could it just be like an advanced option? The user taps to clicks to reveal the address or something like that. But that's really the only comment I have on this flow.
This feels a bit like coin selection here as well. Like if you had multiple UTXOs, how would you know which ones you want to use to create the vault and things of that nature? So it depends how what trade-offs are being made here with regards to maybe privacy or I guess that would be like the main one, or ease of use to just create a wallet, create a vault. Sorry. Interesting.
Because we want to have one vault per UTXO, we don't have this coin selection problem for the creation of vaults. Maybe it's easier for us to have just one vault per UTXO. Because for the stakeholders to share the signatures, to create the signatures and to share them, it will be easier. Like they only have to watch the blockchain, see the new deposits, and sign the revocation transaction from it. What I mean is they don't have to share information to create vaults. They only have to share signatures because all the stakeholders have the derivation index, and they can derive from the deposit descriptor and create the vaults from it.
Now, is there a way to kind of customize what the vaults would be used for? Like if somebody's creating a vault and it's not just a random vault because eventually it may be used for specific expenses, I imagine, is there a way to tag them? Or because if you have several of these things, I imagine it would be hard to keep track of them.
Yes, that's a good question. I didn't think about that because the problem is the stakeholders just only want the funds to be secure. So for them, it's a big win to have revocation transactions signed, because it means that they have the emergency. But yes, maybe for the manager side, they want the vault to have some label on it, so it will be easier for them to choose which vault is for which usage. We have this problem of the change. What we call it the problem of the change output. The problem of the change output is you have to send some money. You send some money, but just after you have to send other money to another recipient. And the problem is because you have the change, you need of the change output of the first spend. You cannot spend it yet. You cannot send it to the other guys. You have to wait for the first transaction to be confirmed. I don't know if you have encountered this problem with your wallet on chain, but sometimes when you want to do 2 Bitcoin transactions very quickly and you have only 1 UTXO, you have to wait for the first spend to pass and then to use the change output of the first to create the second spend. And we have this problem with Revolt. So maybe the idea is maybe every vault must have all the same size and be only little vaults of maybe half a Bitcoin, and even half a Bitcoin, it's quite a lot. We don't know yet how to solve this output change problem. We are trying to find some solutions. But yes, if in the case we have multiple vaults with multiple amount, maybe it makes sense, yes, to have a label on it to say, hey, it is big vault. If we want to spend it, we want to spend it on a big things, a big spend or something like this.
Okay, thank you for the explanation. I remember last time you came, you were thinking of possibly getting some feedback from companies. Were you able to reach out to any of them and see what it is that they may need the most?
Yes, we met some OTC desk. What they wanted is it's a flow of Bitcoin coming inside their cold wallet and going. If each time someone want to come and they want to buy some Bitcoin, they want the money to go to where the buyers want them to go. And yeah, we have this problem of the change output for the OTC desk, and that's what makes us think about all this UX UI problem, because it's very weird to say to user, hey, sorry, you have to wait that the stakeholders create more votes if you want to spend again, because some funds are locked. Waiting for the first spend to be made. So yeah, the OTC desk told us what the problem is if they want a lot of money coming inside the Revolt and outside and going outside. The flow is quite complex, but they think it's still better than a multisig, because a multisig means that you have a very lot of money inside one multisig only, and you have one manager on their OTC desk that is spending from the multisig, which is n of m, or maybe one of two. So they are glad of Revolt, but in the same time we have this problem of the change output. Or we can say to the user, hey, you don't have to wait that funds are change output are going back to vaults if you want to spend again. Yeah.
So just we've got about 20 minutes left. I'll keep harping on. I'm just trying to get some UX stuff like this. So, what about in the case when you're creating a vault and something like errors, or like what could go wrong when during like the vault creation process? You can touch on it very briefly because I know you must want to go through the rest of them as well. But is there like anything that can go like quite drastically wrong, or could occur, or could error regularly?
The problem is how do you share the revocation transactions signatures with other stakeholders? What we are
Okay.
using right now is a server that we call the coordinator that is sharing the signatures. The signatures are the coordinator is not trusted, so we don't have a problem to send signatures to it because it cannot derive transaction. It doesn't have the descriptors and it doesn't have a lot of information. In fact, it has nothing. Instead, it receives some random signatures. It doesn't know where it comes from. And from these signatures, it's not enough to reconstruct the transaction because you still need the TXID and you need a lot of stuff like the emergency address that the coordinator does not know. But the problem is if the coordinator is not up, is not running, the stakeholders cannot share between them the revocation transaction signatures. So for this, they have to wait until the coordinator is up, but they only have to call to their IT service and say, hey, the coordinator is not up. I cannot share the revocation transactions properly.
So it could be like a bit of a time delay or time constraint is like could be an issue here, and then how you, I guess, let users know what the underlying problem is, whether it is a, like you say, you need to go to IT department. Hey, can you check what's going on with like our coordinator? It's down. Is it offline? Is it just not broadcast? Is it just not sharing transaction information or whatever it might be? Okay, so that could lead to like time delays if, like we mentioned earlier, exchanges are doing things that have time constraints on them that could cause a lot of issues. So okay, so there's this idea of the coordinator being quite vital and needing to essentially be online all of the time.
Yeah, and in the same time we have because every stakeholder is able to derive the transactions by themselves because they have the derivation index and they all have a Bitcoin on their laptop. They can check that the coordinator is sending to them good signatures. So if the coordinator has a wrong behavior, immediately the stakeholders can the wallet on the laptop can check it and say, hey, I received the signatures for I don't know what. But it should not happen at this stage.
Okay.
So we have this idea of delegating funds to the manager team. For the moment, what we are doing for this is the stakeholders is selecting the vault manually and then sign the unvault transaction. So we just have to sign the transaction and give it to the managers. The managers receive the signatures by the coordinators because the managers has what we call the unvault descriptor, so he can derive the transactions by himself. He only needs the signatures from the stakeholders. And what we did for the moment was the selection of the vaults we want to delegate. And one question I have for all of you is it better maybe to have a slider and not to think about the amount, the UTXO you want to share to the manager, but is it better to think about amount instead of coin? Like saying, hey, I want to delegate 10 Bitcoin instead of saying, hey, I want to delegate 5 volts.
Is the current screen you have saying, okay, that's saying delegate 1 volt? Yeah, okay, that's saying delegate 1 volt. Okay.
For the moment, we choose to be explicit and to show to the user which vault is delegating. But the problem is we want the stakeholders to have little effort to do in terms of selection. We just want him to secure all the fonts in one step. And in the same thing for the delegate font, we want him maybe just to say, hey, I just want my fonts to be secure, and I want just to delegate 5 Bitcoin to the manager team.
I think it's interesting because like the vaults don't have, from what I can see, like much like any metadata or anything to like identify them in a way that would give a manager an indication of what this is for, if that makes sense. So,
Well, is it possible to delegate a smaller amount of Bitcoin to the managers? Like I see that Vault has, roughly 10 Bitcoin in it, but do they have to delegate the entire Vault, or could it be less?
No, sadly, they have to delegate the entire vault.
Entire Vault.
So that's the problem of the output change that I just say later. It's if we delegate the big vaults, you don't have enough funds after to delegate to the manager if they want to do a smaller spend or if they want to do more. So maybe yes.
So no, I was gonna say, so there's a lot of the communication for this have to happen. Some of it just like outside of this this software, because like if I'm a manager and I receive a vault that is BCR blah blah blah, I want this to, I'm assuming, to be like quite smooth, quite quick. I'd need to have had some conversations somewhere to say, one of my stakeholders is going to send me a vault for amount 9.99501 BTC with vault ID or or address BCR1 blah blah blah. Is that how I would kind of reason about whether or not this is the right thing?
Yeah, for the moment, the problem of the delegation funds is we didn't solve it yet. Yeah, for the
Because
moment,
if you're a manager and you're receiving like loads of different, it might, I don't know, I'm just kind of thinking out loud, but you're a manager and you're receiving loads of different vaults with loads of different alphanumeric numbers and lots of different BTC amounts. Could it get overwhelming? How do you like try and ease some of that filtering out to know which ones to sign, which ones not to sign, which ones to ask more questions around? Or
if you're a manager, you will save the present transactions, so you know the vaults that you know can managing, but until you broadcast the vault transaction, it's not moving anywhere. So I don't think it's really overwhelming for them to have their list of vaults that can move. But yes, maybe some label system will be nice, especially if the amount is different for each vault. Only they want to keep the biggest for some big spend. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
So it's very weird because we want to get rid of the coin selection because it's very something that for a casual user it's not very easy to grasp. But each time you work with Bitcoin, you finally have some coin selection at a moment. It's very a problem with the blockchain.
Would it be possible maybe to try and solve this issue with change, that since none of these transactions are broadcasted until the end and until they're signed by stakeholders, that most of the stuff that happens on the inside is not actually that you could choose like different amounts, and then at the end maybe on a specific day or something of the sort, all of these expenditures are put together at the end, and the system would kind of pick the ones or the bolts that would possibly remove or have less change.
Yeah,
I don't know.
we are thinking of this. It has a name. It's probabilistic coin selection, like saying that an algorithm that every stakeholders and managers have all the same in the same wallet that will do the coin selection same for everyone, so they don't have to think about the coin selection because it's done by the algorithm. On the other side, we are thinking of maybe we can find a way to have every vault with the same amount, so you don't have this change this coin selection anymore because every vault have the same amount, so you just have to it will be done more easily.
But
Yeah,
but I can imagine like expenditures would probably be quite different, and their needs would be quite different based on what they're trying to do. So I don't know, maybe a way to batch them at the end or something of the sort to avoid change. I don't know if it's even possible, but I don't know.
yes.
And the other
Yes.
thing is, if you start getting, if you have multiple stakeholders and multiple managers, it would be nice to be able to like add their name or their department or something of the sort, so you can tell who you're sending that stuff to.
Yes, that's a good idea. We choose to not have the name first because we thought it was not a very good secure way to say to people that they are sending to the good guy or to the good person. Because we didn't know if the config, if the laptop will be trusted at a moment or if there is someone changing things. But I think it would be nice, yes, to just to understand what is going on, where the funds are going. If I have a nice label saying, "Hey, I'm sending the funds to Antoine or Edouard," I don't know. Yeah, and maybe label is still better than the horrible BCRT 1Q or the address.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
that would make it a little bit.
But the problem is, if you have a label, it means that every user has the same label, or if it is the case, we need to find a way to share the labels with every participant. And can we do it in a way that is trustless? I don't know.
Cool. Let's we've got about about 5 minutes left. So far, yeah, this has been really good. I enjoyed it. I've actually learned quite a lot in this session. What do you want to do for the last 5 minutes? Do you want to have like a general chat, or do you want to go through maybe one more flow? And then if people want to stay on after, they're more than free to continue. Or would you rather us have a bit of a more general chat about how you go about how you would like to receive feedback, how you would like to integrate some design improvements and stuff like that? I think that could be.
Yes, but maybe quickly on the send funds part, where a manager is creating the spend. So yes, just I wanted from you, from all of you, just on a general feedback on the GUI. Do you think it's quite ugly for the moment? It's what is the thing that you think it's not very good that we need to fix first? Like in terms of UX, something is just pop at your face saying, "Hey, it's not good enough."
Yeah, from my point of view, it's just trying to find a way to, um, reduce the reliance on showing addresses and TXIDs on screen. One example of something that's handled this really well that I can provide is Breeze Wallet, and uh, obviously it's a different type of service because it's a Lightning wallet. But one thing they do really well, I think, is instead of you know when you have a Lightning payment, instead of showing you a lot of metadata about that payment, they'll generate like a little kind of avatar for the person, for the Lightning node that your payment was sent to. So they just have like a library of little icons and they use that little icon to represent the node, or they'll generate like a silly name for it, like Red Hippo or Pink Walrus or something like that. So perhaps there could be a way to just simplify what the vaults are. Maybe it's automatically assigned a random name, like vault created on Monday or vault created on Tuesday, something like that. So it has like a name, an identifiable name in the user's mind, but they don't have to deal with the complicated Bitcoin stuff.
Okay, yes. Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely maybe too much letters on the numbers on the screen.
Let's spend like just a couple of minutes just talking about how you want feedback, how people can contribute and things of that nature. Because yeah, thank you for putting the Figma file together. It's quite extensive and it's quite a good way for designers to just jump in and leave some comments, and like the flows are all laid out really nicely and stuff, so people can definitely dive in after and leave some comments. But yeah, how do you hope to try and get some consistent design feedback like moving forward? Is the best way now, since this lovely Figma file has been put together, is the best way to just jump in Figma, leave some comments for designers to maybe even fork, or it's not really called forking in Figma, right? It's like remixing, or I can't remember the name now, but yeah, for people to make their own copy of the files and play around a little bit. What's your kind of thoughts around that stuff, or if anyone else has thoughts as well?
I'm not used to Figma. I have a free plan, so I'm not sure if I can do a lot of things with it. But if I can have a comment on it, yes, sure, please give feedback. Maybe what we need is to understand better where to. For example, I have this spend transaction screen, and you can see that I put the buttons like very quickly because we were in rush and I had to create a demo very quick. But we can see that there is some alignment or things like this where we need help or we need feedback just to say, hey, if you want some tabulation, just don't do it like that. Do it in a better way. Yeah, maybe other feedbacks is on very small stuff, like you said, the fact that we see too much the address or the text ID. But I also I will be very happy to have some feedbacks if the amount are displayed properly, if we have if the RBTC label, for example, is a good idea to show it's a right test coin. Maybe we should remove the BTC and just have the Bitcoin icon. If for our usage, it's interesting to have the SAT display, or if it's still better to have BTC, or I mean, you can have some digit number, or I don't know. There is a lot of little things that I made some mistakes by implementing it, but there is the fact that we are only 3 developers, and I have to move quick. Yeah, mostly it's more feedbacks on what's the good way to presenting a page of informations, like complex informations from all the information of a spend consuming a vault. What's the best way to display, for example, this transaction? should we implement a label as app in order to have something better than the address? Do we want the address still to be shown, or do we want it just to be somewhere hidden in the details, like something more technical, a tab for more technical details? Feedbacks on the how to have a nice presenting page, a nice presenting panel. I will be very grateful to have that.
Awesome. So yeah, we're gonna have this is quite important. We're gonna have Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy using Revolt in the near future. Like, that's the goal, right? I mean, it's very much part of the Bitcoin philosophy to self-custody, and so if we can get large institutions self-custody in as well, that goes a long way to help improving the network. So I commend you for taking on this as a challenge, because it's not certainly not straightforward. But it looks like you guys are on the right path, so good stuff. We have to wrap up there. Is there any final comments from anyone on the call?
Just thank you for your time and for working on figuring out all these details. There's a lot to look into.
Yeah. Thank you very, very much for all your time. And yes, it's a lot, and there's a lot to discuss. We didn't discuss yet about the watchtower. How do we want the user to update the spend policies of the watchtower? What's the best way to do it for someone that is not good in code development, for example? We didn't talk about all the problem of the fee bumping, because the problem of our pre-signed transaction is you sign it way before the time they will be broadcast. So maybe the mempool is not empty that the first day you sign the pre-signed transaction. So we have what we call the CPFP output in order to have our pre-signed transaction go through the mempool. But this CPFP output are a new kind of change. How do we display it to the users? Because users don't know what a CPFP output is, and it's not really a change, but it is still money on the blockchain. So yeah, a lot of new struggle every day. It's a new day of challenge. But
Yeah.
maybe
Okay.
we can talk. Yeah.
Okay, good stuff. All right, thank you for that again. I'll stop recording. Thank you.